clear of the closing doors, please.
Subway Sports Talk, Pete Kennedy, Cody O'Connor. You know what to do on the podcast app. Subscribe, rate, review. YouTube, same thing. Subscribe, notification bell. Social media at Subway Sports Talk. Final topic here, Cody. USA basketball starts this Sunday. The Olympics are about to kick off, and we have the USA basketball team with a little bit of a couple speed bumps in the prelims, if you will. We'll call them the prelims. But we know this team is star-studded. The big thing when you're star-studded is who is going to be what? Who's the go-to guy? Who are the closers? Who are the defensive stoppers? Who's got to get in off the bench and knock down big buckets? So, Cody, with the way this roster looks now, what are you looking at here? What are we thinking about as the guys we're looking to bring USA basketball another gold medal?
Yeah, at closing five, I think that's the right conversation to have, right? Starting five, so be it. But the closers, who's in there in crunch time? I know we're going to see different lineups. There's going to be matchup-based things. You're going to get some Drew Holiday minutes in crunch time. You might get Derek White minutes in crunch time. But when it comes down to it, who the five are that you can say most consistently are probably going to lead your team in minutes. Is that fair to put it that way? Lead your team in minutes, say, throughout, or and be there in crunch time for the most part. So I've got my own idea. I'm definitely open to some suggestions, but I love this conversation. I love United States basketball. I love watching the Olympics. So here's my five. This is what I think. I think there's three guys that I almost unquestionably want in there, and it's almost funny because they're the older generation. But Steph, LeBron, and KD, barring that KD is coming in fully healthy, I think that those three are almost mainstays in my closing lineup. It's crazy to think that with all this young talent and USA basketball, but I'm almost like they, no question, need LeBron in there. Which is funny because when we have the top 5 or 7 conversation, he's not in that conversation right now. But I look at this team, and granted, a lot of those guys are foreign, Jokic, Antetokounmpo, SGA, Luke, whatever. But I look at this team, and I think LeBron is still the closer. I still think at the end of the day that he's the guy closing biggest buckets. LeBron probably gets the ball. So him, Steph, right along with him, and KD. I just trust those three. I trust that they're going to bring the others together. KD is an unbelievable Olympic basketball player. I think he's the all-time leading scorer for United States history. So I got those three. I think Anthony Edwards and I think Anthony Davis are the guys that I close out with. So Edwards, just a dog. I mean, he could get it going, and you could just say clear out and let this guy go to work, and you could feel comfortable. Davis, I just go with him over Embiid because, one, he looks like he's in better shape right now. And two, I just think his defensive versatility. And when you've got good Anthony Davis, and I think in the Olympics, you're almost always going to get good Anthony Davis. I think he's got a not higher ceiling, but a better fit maybe is the way I would put it. Because we know Embiid's probably the more talented player, but for closing out these games, defensive purposes, the other guys on the floor, I think I'd go with Anthony Davis, giving him the nod over Embiid right now.
And I think the Anthony Davis over Embiid thing makes tons of sense. So many of these European teams, and even the team I'd say European, but there's obviously teams outside of Europe.
Yeah.
They move the ball so much. There's so much spacing. There's so much pace that you need somebody who can run the floor a little bit better, which Anthony Davis is better at right now. Somebody who can kind of get out and defend outside a little bit more, which Embiid can do, but in this setting, probably not as much so. I mean, Bam Adebayo defensively is probably a better fit for this style of basketball than Embiid at this point in time. I 100% agree on the big three. The big three is Steph, KD, and LeBron. LeBron still, it runs through him. We know it. And KD, I also heard some numbers about him in the minutes that he's put up in some of these games in USA history. Like, he's playing almost every minute of the game, and he can do that. He can also defend multiple positions. So KD, very much so, is the guy. I think he is the closing scorer as well. I know a lot of things will run through LeBron, but you need a bucket. I still think you go to KD. I know there's tons of bucket getters on this roster, but KD might be number one. I think Derek White or Drew Holiday will take that last spot over Anthony Edwards for closing lineups. Unless Ant starts absolutely cooking offensively. And I mean, obviously him being locked in on defense is going to be important, but Drew and Derek White are so built to guard quick guards and switch if they have to, that I think that they could make a ton of sense to close out games. And Derek White's probably the better shooter out of Ant Edwards and Drew Holiday, right? So a little bit of spacing.
Spot up, catch and shoot. I think so. But again, it could be played by little rhythm thought. But yeah, I think that's fair.
And then, I mean, Bill Simmons talks about this all the time. Who's going to be okay, not getting the ball as much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have Steph, who's okay moving the ball and not being on ball, but he's going to touch it. KD's kind of the same thing. LeBron likes to pound it a little bit. If Anthony Edwards is out there, is he equipped right now to say, all right, I'm going to run off 4 screens and stand in the corner and cut and do all this stuff? Hopefully. I think that would make him a better player overall, but is that going to fit? Same for Devin Booker. Like, is Devin Booker going to say, all right, I'm going to run off screens and become Olympic Melo in a way, right? Like, Melo had those runs when he was in the Olympics. Like, they can't score. All of a sudden, Melo comes off the bench and hits 4 threes. Like, can Devin Booker do that? So I think Derek White is going to be the closing option for Team USA.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. It seems like we had similar thoughts on this, right? Where Drew or Derek White could kind of get some of those closing minutes. I don't doubt that. I think that's why you bring both of those 2 guys in. You hit all the points that I would think the same way with. The one thing I find interesting is that neither of us have really mentioned, and I guess nor really, not that I haven't given it thought, but the champion of the NBA, Jason Tatum, the probably now considered top 5, 6 highest, I think that you can fairly put him, Jason Tatum. But neither of us have him in the closing 5, and I don't feel super comfortable over KD or over Bron or even AD or I guess AD, but really over probably that shooting guard spot. Unless you're saying, well, based on this rhythm of the game, Jason Tatum is just on fire, and when he catches fire, we know what he can do. But I think more likely than not, he is on the outside looking into that closing 5, and it seems you think the same.
It's interesting because he did such a good job playing defense in this playoff. Like, I think that's underrated to his playoff run. Obviously, not winning the Finals MVP, it's debatable, right?
Yep,
like, if
agree.
Tatum won it, it wouldn't have been like, oh my God, how did he win? Like, you could argue he probably should have won it. We might look back a couple of years from now, just like we did with Steph Curry, Andre Iguodala situation, and be like, that was really Tatum's team. He did so many things. And I think it's possible that he will make sense here. But my question is, can you run out a Steph Curry, Tatum, KD, Bron, and a big unit? Does that unit work in crunch time or in general?
If the ball's moving, because you got to think defensively, the versatility, Jason Tatum can guard 1 through 5. Obviously, Steph's a little bit more limited, but KD and LeBron, not the same defenders they once were, but both can strap it up, especially in those meaningful moments. And AD is another one that he's going to guard your 5, but he can guard your wing. He can guard your 4. Like, he's versatile as well. So as long as the chemistry was good enough and you're not just like, all right, here's a Tatum step back, killing kind of some momentum, which would be my fear with having him in over Derek White or over Drew Holiday, which is probably a similar thought that you're thinking when it comes to Anthony Edwards, which I think is completely fair as well. So it's just a fun. I love this conversation. I do love when these guys get together because it's not just the talent pool, because Jalen Brunson isn't on the team, but I know we could argue that he's better than some of the guys that are on the group, but he maybe just doesn't fit perfectly with the style, or you have multiple of him in a way. And so you go with a different guy, a guy who's more versatile, who can do different things in different matchups. And that's why it's fun, because the closing 5 is likely not always going to be the same. And you could argue that there are probably 3, 4, 5 different lineups that make sense with this group of guys.
And it makes sense the way you just laid that out, because if you play France and Gobert and Wembanyama are in the game together, like, you might have to size up a little bit. Maybe you have to go Bam and AD together or something like that. Like, who's guarding Wemby, who's guarding Gobert? I guess you can stick anyone on Gobert kind of, but from a rebounding perspective, that's going to get a little hairy. Yeah. But here's the other question, Cody, and this is a crazy thing to even say out loud, but in international basketball, it makes sense. say you go up against Germany and you have Steph Curry, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. And, I don't even know how I'm saying this. Who guards Dennis Schroeder? Like, I'm being serious, though.
When you get, dude, you're right, though, because you get in these international games and it's like, oh, shoot, like, damn, Lou Dort just went for 40? Like, and obviously not Lou Dort because he's on a better Canadian team, but you know what I mean? Like, you'll get like the Evan Fournier 38, and you're like, he looks completely unstoppable tonight, and that's a true fact. So it's funny, but it's a real conversation to have. And the world is like more than caught up. We know that.
Oh, 100%. Like, Fournier is useless in the NBA right now and is going to be an absolute player in this tournament. Mm-hmm. Dennis Schroeder dominates in these international tournaments. He is so fast, and the way the pace of the game works and the way he can throw lobs up or just attack the rim and have his bigs pick it off the rim. Like, bro, Schroeder would be a problem for that. And that's where you desperately need Drew Holiday or Derek White. Like, Tatum's a fantastic defender. Can he stay in front of the quick-ass Dennis Schroeder? Like, I'm scared of Schroeder. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome. And you know what? The one thing, too, mentioned in FIBA that I always have to mention is I just wish the NBA could adopt their rules, because you watch the quickness of the game, the way things are called. You'll see it with Embiid. I'm damn sure of that, when he's trying to flop around and they just don't call it because that's not the FIBA way. They have different fast break rules. Like, it just flows so much better. It's such a better product to watch. It's the complaint we all have about the NBA all the time, and we love it as much as anyone. But I can't sit there with the 20-minute replays at the end of games. It sucks. It takes away the fun of the game. So I wish these FIBA rules would be adopted, but at least for the next couple weeks, whenever we can watch that and be like, oh, this is great basketball.
And another thing with the FIBA rules, with the way like the timeouts work and stuff like that and substitutions, like there'll be a point in the game where, I think Bill actually referenced this exact thing happening. Like, LeBron's waiting to check in, and there's just like a 4-minute stretch where like you can't use your timeout. You can't like do a take foul or whatever, because it's a violation. And all of a sudden, like, your best player is just standing there waiting for something to happen to be able to get subbed in, because the flow is so crazy. Like, it doesn't stop, and it changes everything. I feel like all the guys who go and play in the Olympics, obviously some of them have done it before, but when they do it for the first time, they're like, oh my God, it's like shell shock. It really is.
Almost to a level of a different sport. And that, it's funny because that would probably infuriate some of us as fans. Like, if we were watching these FIBA rules in the NBA and we're just like, why the hell can't they get Jalen Brunson in the game? There's now 2 minutes left. He hasn't played the whole fourth quarter, and you'd be like tearing your hair out over on the sidelines. But I love the FIBA rules. I love the way the game flows. I love how hard they have to play. And I just like that they can't just flop into and throw their arms up and get fouls out of it. And so, we're going to see that, like I said, with Embiid. We're going to find out, with SGA, how he's going to be able to manage with that, and Luka Doncic and some of the – actually, is Luka in this?
Is Slovenia in it? I think for some reason I feel like Slovenia is not in it.
I feel like that too, which kind of stinks. But, yeah, I am very excited, if you can't tell, for some summer basketball. The Olympics in the midst of the dog days. Super cool.
And why I looked this up, another thing that I'm excited about for USA basketball, have you seen any 3-on-3 stuff yet?
I don't believe so.
Do you know who's on the team? Have you heard about who's on the team?
No, so they're doing this as another Olympics. So I'm guessing it's got to be some type of like retired NBA players potentially. I don't know actually anything about this. I only know.
So it's really cool. There's 2 players that I'm familiar with on it. Canyon Barry and Jimmer Fredette are on this 3-on-3 team.
Oh, I did see something
who's
about
not trying
Jimmer. That's cool.
Right? Like, who's not? Oh, I think Slovenia is in it, by the way. I'm having a hard time finding it, but whatever. Jimmer Fredette 3-on-3. It's games to 10 or 10-minute clock, and like really like moving clock. They can sub on every single possession, and it's apparently like very, very quick. So very excited about Jimmer Fredette going off there. It looks like it could be very, very fun. And they're not like the favorite, right? Because there's 3-on-3 basketball in the rest of the world is like a huge, huge thing. So it's like apparently I heard Fredette on a podcast talking about like Lithuania is nasty, like Latvia is very good, like you got Serbia is really awesome, like 'cause they take it serious. They play 3-on-3 all the time. So USA is one of the favorites, but not the favorite. And Fredette's been playing 3-on-3 exclusively for like 2 years now. So it's like kind of a cool little thing there to see 3-on-3 basketball as well. I'm excited about that.
Doesn't that feel like the perfect place for Isaiah Thomas to be playing in the Olympics? Doesn't it feel like Isaiah Thomas would be in that?
The only problem is, as Jimmer explained on this podcast, it's 3-on-3, and there's only 1 or 2 subs. Like there's only 4 or 5 guys active for a game, and if you are easily picked upon on defense, like you are exposed instantly. Like that's one of the things. Sense, like though. Jimmer's pretty small, and he's like, it's something that I had to adjust to. Like being in this 3-on-3 action, all of a sudden I'm getting posted up by a 7-footer. Like what just happened? And like that seems like it could be a problem for IT, but I'm sure he can ball out in that thing. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, so that's cool though. I'm excited to see that too. Hopefully it's not like a 4 a.m. thing, but yeah, I love the Olympics. I love Olympic basketball. So it's a great way to get you kind of through the sports time of August and back into football, which is coming back soon. So
football, man, around the corner. But that's all we got here on Subway Sports Talk. Thank you all for listening so much. Podcast app, you know what to do. Subscribe, rate, review, drop a comment, follow us on social media at Subway Sports Talk. Listen on Friday mornings at 9 a.m. on RadioGardenState.com on their new 24/7 live radio station, RadioGardenState.com. But for Cody O'Connor, I'm Pete Kennedy. We'll be back to talk more baseball, more USA hoops, and football around the corner. Thanks so much for listening. We will talk to you soon. Cheers.